Hey everyone, my name is Sophie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you how I meal plan every single week. And these are the tips and tricks that I use to make sure meal planning is simple, easy, and kind of just a no-brainer for me. So if you guys are excited, then let's jump right into the first tip. And my first tip is that you should plan on a weekly basis. When you plan on a weekly basis, you can pick one day that's your planning day. For me, that's Saturday, and one day that's your grocery trip day. And for me, that's Sunday. Now, this is going to save you time, money, and mental energy. And by mental energy, I mean when you sit down every Saturday, you only need to sit down once per week to think through what you're going to plan. It's also going to save you money. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I go to the grocery store, a few extra things end up in my cart that I didn't plan for. And by cutting down on the number of grocery trips that you have, you're going to cut down on the opportunities to toss some extra things in your grocery cart, especially maybe some things that might not be the healthiest for us. So by planning, you're going to avoid all of that. So I've even tried meal planning for every 2 weeks and even a full month in advance. And while I can accomplish those things, it's not something that's sustainable for me personally. And I find that I prefer to do a week by week basis, have my Saturdays to plan and my Sundays to shop. That way I'm getting fresh veggies every week and I have a little more flexibility with my meal plan. When I plan on a monthly basis, it is so hard to predict what's going to happen a full month in advance, and it's usually just too much for me. That being said, a month in advance, I do have a little bit of an idea of some meal plans and recipes that I would like to use that month. So I actually keep a Word document on my computer, and I just kind of keep a running list, and then I'm going to bump up to the top the meals that I'm going to use for that present week. The rest are just going to kind of stay floating at the bottom in this running list that I have, and then when I go to meal plan for next week, it's going to make it even easier, and I can pick a few recipes, bump them to the top again, and then that's the meal plan for the following week. So my second tip for you guys is to create a place where you save your recipes. So everyone has different places that they save their recipes, whether it's Pinterest, maybe you have some cookbooks, maybe you've printed some things out from the internet, you have magazines, whatever it is, you probably have multiple places where you have your recipes saved. And that makes it really difficult when you're trying to sit down and meal plan and think of what recipes you want to use for the following week if you don't know where they are. If you have multiple places where you're saving recipes and you're trying to think of one of your family favorites, but you can't remember if it was from a blog post or a cookbook, it's gonna take time away from your meal planning to just hunt those recipes down. So for me, I really don't like cooking from technology. I don't like using my computer, my cell phone, or my tablet when I'm cooking. I absolutely hate when those ads pop up or when my phone goes to sleep and my hands are all sticky. I don't want to type in my passcode or use Face ID to open it up. And I just prefer having paper. So the system that I use is having a recipe binder. And I'll print things from online, rip things out from magazines, maybe even scan a page from a cookbook and slip it into some protective sleeves and organize it in a binder by course type, by protein type, a lot of different categories. And when I sit down on Saturdays to meal plan, I know exactly where all of my family favorites are. And everything that I have in that binder is going to be a recipe that I have tried before and everyone has enjoyed. Recipes that I'm waiting to try, I keep in the front pocket of the binder. And then if I enjoy it and everyone else enjoys it, I will find a home for it in my binder. And if people don't like it, or if it was too difficult to make, I just toss that piece of paper away and it's done. So my third tip for you guys is don't over plan. I am a complete type A person. I'm the first one to admit that. And over planning actually causes more of a problem for me. When you think of meal planning, a lot of people tend to think, okay, I need to schedule for the full week what I'm having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day that week. I just throw breakfast out the window. I don't need to meal plan that. I know the different types of recipes that I like to have for breakfast. Oftentimes they're not actually recipes, so I just skip that. The next thing that I do with lunch and dinner is I don't plan every single meal specifically tied to each day. I usually just pick probably about 5 recipes for the week and create a running list. And with that running list, it gives me a little bit more flexibility. So if I had assigned chicken parmesan for Monday and kale salad for Tuesday, if we didn't finish off the chicken parmesan on Monday and I'm scheduled to have kale salad on Tuesday, I feel stressed out that I didn't plan properly. If I have a running list, it's no problem. I just finish off that chicken parmesan and then I have the kale salad whenever that's done. So like I said, I pick 5 recipes on average per week. And I do that because I plan in leftovers. Of course, if I'm doing 5 recipes per week and there's 7 days in the week, we're gonna have some days where we're having leftovers. And I personally love that. It makes it easier on me. That's less less cooking and I don't mind leftovers at all. But you're gonna have to figure out what works for you and your family, the number of people that you have, and the portion sizes that you like cooking. So think that through, maybe play around with it and figure out how many meals you wanna have on your running list. My next tip for you guys is to be realistic. When you're sitting down on Saturday to plan, you need to think about the upcoming week. Do you have events or obligations or dinners out that you have planned for the next week? If you do, for me, instead of having 5 meals on my list, maybe I'd have 4. Kind of depends on what the situation is. You also want to think about how busy you are. I don't want to try recipes that are really labor or time intensive on a week that I'm just really busy. Maybe I'll schedule in a freezer meal that week, or one that's just a complete no-brainer for me, maybe a crock pot recipe or an Instant Pot recipe where you just dump it in and it makes it easier for that week. The other thing that you're gonna wanna look at is new versus old recipes. I don't wanna have a full week of new recipes that I have never cooked before. That sounds extremely overwhelming to me. Usually I like to pick mostly family favorites that I have made before, that are easy for me to cook, and then maybe toss in 1 or 2 new recipes that I wanna try. The next tip that I have for you is to choose ingredients wisely. So step number 1 of this is to look at what you already have on hand in your fridge, freezer, and pantry. I always like to go in my refrigerator first and find those items that are expiring and meal plan around that. Then I'm gonna go into my freezer and pantry and find some other items that might be expiring that I wanna use up. And if you're thinking to yourself, great, I've identified the things that are expiring in my fridge, my freezer, and my pantry, but I have no idea how to create a meal plan around that, let alone how to find a recipe that uses those items. I'm actually listing a few different websites here that I have used where you can type in those ingredients and they will help identify a recipe for you that uses those ingredients. And then the other items, you can always add those to the grocery list and supplement to create the full recipe. The other thing to note is the ingredients that the recipes you're selecting use. And I like to pick recipes that use ingredients that I like to keep on hand. They're things that I cook with often, as opposed to recipes that have an ingredient that I've never used before and most likely will never use again. If I pick those recipes, I usually just end up with a half-used bottle sitting in my refrigerator that was used for that recipe once and I have to just throw it away. So try and avoid those weird ingredients if you can. The next tip is to mix it up. When you're creating your meal plan, you want to think, will my family be interested in what I'm cooking every single day? Will I be interested in what I'm cooking every single day? So as you're creating your meal plan, you want to think about diversifying the recipes that you're choosing. And that means you don't want to have pasta 7 nights a week, or you don't want to have chicken 7 nights a week. I like to really focus on the proteins and trying to spread those out. So I'm having shrimp one night, chicken the next, then beef, then maybe a vegetarian meal, then salmon, whatever it is, that's something I really focus on. I also like to think about healthy versus indulgent meals. I make sure there's a good balance between the two. So we have some nights where we're getting a little indulgent, but then maybe the next day we have a salad or something a little bit lighter. So just think it through as you're looking through your recipes and make sure both you and your family are gonna be interested in what you're eating every night and it doesn't feel mundane and like you're constantly eating the same thing. My last tip for you is to include your family. You wanna draft your meal plan and maybe show it to them and say, here's what I'm thinking about cooking for next week. Does that sound good to you? The other thing that you can do to include your family is to post it somewhere. I don't know if you have a whiteboard in your kitchen or a chalkboard. I personally like to print mine out from the computer and I have a little easel that I set it on every single week so you can avoid the questions of what's for dinner, what are we eating this week, because it's right there. Everyone's on the same page and it makes it so much simpler. Those are all of the tips that I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel for more, and hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. And until next time, I will see you guys later.